Hello and welcome to the School Mentor Podcast. This is episode 20. Now, this is the podcast where we talk about all things coaching and mentoring within the school setting. My name is Miff Martinek. Now, today's episode, we are going to be talking all about mindset and what we can do to help young people develop, yes, a growth mindset, but really a clear sense of self that is consciously chosen and consciously acted upon. What happens a lot of the time when we think about mindset is we think about it being something that we don't have much control over. We either have a growth mindset or we have a fixed mindset. And it's something that we want to actually start thinking about more consciously, particularly in the school setting where there's such a great opportunity to start changing mindsets and start forming them. It's something that we want to pay a little bit more attention to. Because ultimately, when we think about the outcomes that we want for young people, when we think about them striving for their good grades, striving for great career prospects beyond school, having great well-being, feeling like they can succeed in life, it all comes down to the mindset that they've developed. So in this episode, I'm going to highlight a couple of things that we can do that we need to think about and consider that will help the young people in our care that are entrusted to us. And then exactly what actions we can start to take once we've identified what's sort of going on. So let's start with a definition. Now, mindset is defined as an established attitude that determines how you respond. And when I think about that, an established attitude, the curiosity light bulb goes off in my head immediately. And I go, right, well, when was this established? I didn't notice this. I didn't realise my mindset was being established at any point. And then you look through the literature and I found something today, which was about a study that the University of Washington did on 4 and 5-year-olds that proved that is when self-esteem starts to be created. At 4 or 5 years old. It's incredible to me. But when we start to think, hang on a second, the decisions that I am making now as a 36-year-old are based on the self-esteem that I was establishing as a 4 or 5-year-old, it starts to demonstrate how much we actually need to shine a light on that and start choosing how we think about the world. Now, what's really, really promising is that by default, as human beings, we are programmable people. We are all programmable. Now, what happens a lot of the time is that we are programmed by things that we don't have control over. We're programmed by what we are watching on the news, by the school setting that we are in, and by the people around us. So we're programmed by these external things. But simply by knowing that we are programmable, we know that we can start to change that program. And I'm going to talk about some kind of tools that you can use to start helping and shifting that. The other thing, and I learnt this watching a really good TED talk by Peter Sage, that Peter Sage's TED talks are incredible. He's comes from a sort of world of coaching and he's an entrepreneur and he has the most amazing wealth of knowledge in this space. But what Peter Sage was saying was that we are programmable by design. And he talks about this thing called the law of conformity, which is a sort of 95% law that if you are the one person sat with 9 other highly successful, driven people, that you will probably fall in line with them. But also, if you're the one person sat with a group of 9 drug addicts, that you are most likely going to become the 10th. And what that demonstrates is that the environment that we put ourselves in trumps any kind of willpower that we've got. The environment that we are in trumps willpower. So let's look at this through a school lens. Let's think about how we are creating an environment that gives children the best possible chance of mastering their sense of self. How can we help them develop a strong sense of self? Someone that, yes, has a growth mindset, that has entrepreneurial skills for sure, but that knows who they are and knows that they don't need to worry about knowing every single last thing. They just need to have that sense of self. They need to understand what's going on in their world. So the actions that we can start to take when we're thinking about how we shape the young people in our care. And this is also, when I was watching this, I wasn't automatically thinking, oh, this is really applicable in school. I was immediately thinking about how it was applicable in my life. I'm an adult who spends her entire life talking about well-being and talking about empowering people and feeling like you're in control of your life. And this is so applicable in my life. So imagine what we could do in the school setting if we started applying some of these rules. So I want you to start thinking about what you need to stop putting in. When you know that that environment is what trumps everything, what needs to stop being added into the environment? I like to think about this. The session that I'm running this week is all about boarding. And when I think about the boarding houses that I've spent time in, there are the boarding houses that value current affairs and sort of the external world. And then there are boarding houses that focus on academic achievement. And then there's more boarding houses that maybe focus more on well-being and focusing on developing the skills of the young person, developing relationship skills and self-belief. And I think about what we should have more of and what we should have less of. Now, one thing that schools always do is they really promote this idea of being maybe a global citizen and having a really good knowledge about current affairs, having a really good knowledge about what's going on in the news. But the opposite of that is going on when you look at the entrepreneurial space. You listen to the likes of Peter Sage, the likes of Daniel Priestley, some really big voices in the entrepreneurial space, and they're saying, stop watching the news. The news doesn't change. The news programs you to think negatively, to think that the world is a place of scarcity. So stop watching it. Now, I'm not saying that I land on one side or other of this argument. And I believe that for young people, an awareness is good. But what impact is it having on their mindset? Are they automatically, because they are seeing all the negative news about elections going on at the moment, is that impacting their subconscious mindset to believe that the world is a place of scarcity, a place where people only ever have conflict, and a place that does not have room for them and that doesn't want to listen to them? How can we start to reduce the wrong things that are coming into the environment so that we can start to develop an environment that allows growth and self-discovery and self-mastery? So start looking at your environment. Your environment might be your classroom. It might be a boarding house. It might be the entire school. What do you need to stop coming into your environment that is poisoning it? I almost think of it as like a lovely pool of water that you want to create great fresh water that is drinkable, that is beautifully clean. You want to think about what's coming in that is muddying that water, that is making it unsanitary, that's poisoning the water that you have. So you want to stop putting the wrong things in, and you want to start putting the right things in. So what could you add into your environment? What can be added into this pool that is going to be self-cleaning, that is going to create new life and create a wonderful ecosystem. Now, what we need to start putting in that's going to develop self-esteem, that's going to develop a sense of self and a sense of mastery and understanding of oneself, are things like mentoring programs where people are feeling connected and safe and cared for. When we are cared for, we know that people can thrive. If they're coming from a place of feeling cared for, then we are ticking that box so that they can go on and be brave. So mentoring is a fantastic place to start. It's one of the reasons I focus so heavily on mentoring. It's a fantastic place to start. Honest, brave conversations where people can practice good skills of self-discovery, of curiosity, of taking risks. That's a really brilliant place to start. Do you want to see how you can start celebrating failure? Yes, I go into every single school and there are pictures and trophies and everything all over the world, all over the walls of all the successes that school has seen, all of the times that they've won. Where are all the failures? Because I'm sure that they're there. But if we are automatically sweeping all the failures under the rug and ignoring them, then we aren't creating an environment that celebrates failure as a step on the way to success. Unless we start changing at this really fundamental level, then we aren't going to be shaping young minds to know that they can be brave, to know that they can try, fail, dust themselves off and get back up again. Because all we are doing is saying, what are your grades? What are we putting on the wall? How are we celebrating the head boy or the head girl? How are we celebrating all these great things? Well, how can you celebrate failure? Those amazing lessons. What are you doing to celebrate that stuff? And how are you communicating it to your community? And maybe even in your marketing when you're thinking about attracting the right families into your school. How are you communicating this stuff? People want to know that stuff. They want to understand that failure is something to be lent into and that it's something that is celebrated in your setting. And we also want to think about empowerment. We want to add in as much empowerment as possible. I've watched this so much with my 3.5-year-old recently. My husband will get frustrated and want to, hurry her along as she's getting her shoes on and she's putting them on the wrong feet, or get her zip done up for her. And she gets so furious with him when this happens. Because right now, she doesn't care about failing too much. She'll scream about it and then maybe get a little bit of help. But right now, she wants to be empowered. She wants to have the opportunity to take on these little tasks, doing up her own zip, putting on her own shoes, even if they're on the wrong feet. We just need to kind of guide her to know what to look for and then let her get on with it herself. And it's so hard when we are rushed off our feet, and it's so hard when we can see the answer is right there. But we need to prioritize it. And it is crazy to me every time I go into a school where they are talking about how they want to emphasize the academics, and yet they are looking at that end result. What is the grade? Without really diving into, but what mindset are we developing along the way? What is that pupil going to achieve beyond that grade? Because if they've achieved that grade because they've been handheld by a academically brilliant teacher, but they haven't learned that they can do it for themselves, they haven't been empowered, what are you setting them free after school to do? What are they going to go on and achieve? So when we start to look at what we can do right here and right now, we want to stop and look at all the things that we need to slow down on putting in, all of that negativity, what negativity are we driving into these young people's minds? And it might be constant news media updates. It might be how we manage social media and how we manage phone management in school. It might be all kinds of things, the attitudes that teachers are bringing. How do we manage the negativity going in, and so turn that tap down and then turn up the tap of positive opportunity for empowerment, for failure, and for positive interactions and connection? And when we start to look at those two dials in a school setting, you have some guidance as to what you need more of and what you need less of. And then we can start to see some really impressive shifts when it comes to student well-being. Then we will start to see a shift towards a whole school approach to well-being, a whole school approach to thriving. It's not even just about well-being anymore. It's about how you thrive as a human being. It's so fundamental. And a lot of schools are getting it wrong. So I would love for you to take a pause and remember these things. 1, we are programmable, and we are being constantly programmed by everything around us. So we need to get conscious and choose what's going on around us and what we choose to take in. 2, the environment will always trump will. It doesn't matter how strongly we really, really, really want to manage our weight and to lose some excess fat. If the only place we ever go to eat is McDonald's, it's unlikely to happen. 3, we need to stop putting the wrong things in. What are those wrong things that are coming into our environment? Those negative things that are forming a mindset of scarcity, of fear, and of defensiveness. And lastly, what do we need more of? And how can we create more of it? We need more opportunity for failure. We need more opportunity to feel empowered. And we need that positive relationship environment. Take a second and reflect on your setting. It could be your classroom, it could be your boarding house, it could be your whole school. It could be just what's happening on the sports pitch when you're going out to coach. Take a second, reflect on this. How do you turn up the right tap of the positivity coming in, and how do you turn down that negativity, that poisonous negativity that makes us feel weak and incapable of managing our own lives and our own mental state? I hope this has been a podcast that you can take some action on immediately, that's got you thinking, that you can start shifting the dial in your school. Now, what this always comes down to is everybody playing their part. So think about who you can share this with. Think about who you can maybe invite along to the Mentors Packed Lunch, the weekly event that I run, that is all about driving this kind of positive energy into schools and this positive empowerment of the individual. How do we help these young people to develop strength in their minds? Think about how you can share this and how you can help shift this movement forward. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what's going on in your school. So please do reach out and get in touch with me. But for now, that is all, and have a great rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the School Mentor Podcast. We hope you're leaving today's episode feeling inspired to create a stronger, more connected school community. To access more resources, be sure to visit our website at this-is-me.uk. It would mean the world to us if you subscribed, rated and reviewed our podcast, and shared it with your fellow educators. Until next time, thank you for inspiring, mentoring, and changing the lives of the young people in your community.